Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another podcast. We have a wonderful guest today. His name is Patrick Armstrong, and he was recently appointed as President of the Americas for DynaEnergetics there in Houston. He studied mechanical engineering at UT Austin with no real aspirations to ever join the energy industry, but life took him in a different path, and he's never looked back. He has an extended background in operations and engineering, so we're excited to hear how he has navigated his entire career all the way to now becoming President of the Americas for DynaEnergetics. So we're very excited to get to know you, Patrick. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you, ladies. It's quite an honor, quite a privilege, and super excited to share my story and talk a little bit about what we got going on here at Dyna.
Wonderful. Well, Patrick, we were just kind of discussing before we started this podcast, but, you're originally from Nashville, Tennessee. So, and our thoughts, we're thinking guitar, you're playing in a band, but you ended up taking your path to Austin, where you graduated with an engineering degree. And then you really didn't know much about oil and gas. You didn't really have aspirations to go into it, but that was a space that now you have found your career. So can you kind of give us a rundown of what life was like, growing up, but also, why energy and how you got intrigued to make it to Austin and follow your path into the energy industry?
Yeah, so I guess it is a bit of a unique path to get to where I'm at today, but certainly I've enjoyed every minute of it. So yeah, as I was telling y'all before we came on here, with the high school that I went to, I think was really good about encouraging students to kind of look elsewhere to consider different alternatives. So a lot of friends going to Vanderbilt or Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, a lot of schools kind of in the Southeast. And I had a good friend of mine that was he went to Texas, a year older than me, and then another friend of mine who eventually did come to Texas with me. Also, his brother went to Baylor, so we were visiting some schools in Texas, and we were in Austin for a weekend. Went to a football game, went to some parties, went to enjoyed the whole Austin experience and live music and all that, which was very similar to Nashville. So I did feel at home. To be honest, I remember, calling my parents like, this is the place. Like I want to go to school here. And I'm thankful I did. I got in when I got in 50 years ago because, it's impossible. It seems like it's impossible to get into the Texas universities these days. But anyways, I did. I got in, and like I said, I haven't looked back since. And I guess, that kind of leads us into, some of the other questions about, obviously being in Texas, it's heavy in the energy industry. And yeah, I didn't know anything about that, and maybe it's I luckily stumbled into it, but man, I'm sure glad I did, because this is the best industry I would want to be. I don't want to be anywhere else. It's been great.
Can you tell us a little bit about the time that you took with your internship with Baker Oil Tools and how you even heard about it to sign up? Because, Austin is a large school. So to really get, be a part of these kind of internships, you really got to be in the know. So how were you able to find that? And what was your first thought when you, started working for Baker as an intern?
Yeah, it's interesting. If I just take one step back, I actually had an internship. I think it was maybe after my freshman year. We were talking about this during the pre-interview, doing the MEP work, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. So I was sitting behind a desk like this, maybe not with the big monitors. We didn't use that, but I was doing AutoCAD all day. It was, it's like the Office Space movie. It was exactly like that. It was, but it was a great experience. And then it showed me that like, this is not what I want to do. I do not want to be behind a computer all day. So fast forward to the next summer, the next 2 summers that I worked for Baker Oil Tools, it's a totally different experience. Being an engineering intern, I got to see, kind of the whole process from, designing a new tool or a new product to prototyping, to building, to lab testing, to field testing. I was like, yeah, this is what, this is what I'm going to school for. This is like, all these classes, they're starting to pay off, starting to make sense. So a totally different kind of experience. And I'll say too, a great part of that was getting to be around true, industry professionals and experts. I'm sure y'all know that, in your background, your experience, the oil field has so many of these, what we call the legends in the patch. And I remember one of my first managers was definitely one of those guys, decades of experience. He's got all the patent plaques up on the wall. He was a great guy to learn under.
Love that. So you decided to continue on your path in the energy industry, especially after such a great internship. And I think that opens a lot of doors for a lot of younger folks once they get the taste of, like you said, of like seeing what the oil field's all about or the energy industry. And then they're like, whatever this is, after I graduate, I want to go into this industry, forget the rest. So that's really cool. We know that when you graduated, though, you got a really good job at NOV in a really like interesting rotational engineering program where you kind of got to move around. And what was really interesting about it was that you got to, interact and like rub shoulders with the senior leaders in the company, which, I don't think a lot of companies get to do that a lot, where they bring in like young fresh grads or 1 to 2 years and they get to interact directly with the leadership team. You mentioned that what was really nice about that is that you got to see like how the sausage was made, but not only that, you also got to experience with the leaders in the industry of what you could become one day. Can you tell us a little bit about those shadowing kind of initiatives and how important that was for you in your career?
Yeah, so the next generation program at NOV was great. I mean, it did exactly like I said. You kind of got to move around in these different roles, and you got to see different parts of the company. And for me, I mean, I see that again, not wanting to sit behind a computer. And while I love the time at Baker, I kind of saw myself more like sales, business development. That was, I like a technical background, but that's more what I was looking for. So the NOV opportunity seemed perfect for me, right? It's like, okay, yes, you're an engineer, but you're going to go, maybe you'll have a job in finance, maybe you'll be in sales, maybe you'll do one in engineering. I spent some time in Dubai. So it was a perfect opportunity for me. And you're exactly right. One of the best parts of that was getting to shadow some of the senior leaders, in the business. Because, like, I mean, right? When you step into, your first job, you don't know anything. You don't even know where the coffee pot is. You don't know. You don't know what good looks like. So getting to shadow senior leaders is really, really important, and that really starts to shape, how you interact, how you do business, how you start to understand how, what success looks like. And so, like we talked about, getting to go on, sales calls, with some of these big corporate VPs of, these our biggest accounts, or working on a presentation, or, whatever it was. You're like, okay, now I'm getting into the mix, and you're seeing what real work is like, where you just don't know what that is, when you're in college. So yeah, kudos to NOV. I mean, it's a fantastic program. And we had also, I don't know what the number was, how many fresh college grads we put through, but it was a great program, super well received. And I think too, I mean, for us, it was great. I mean, as young people, but also, I think for the leaders in the organization as well, because they kind of, I mean, think about it in our lives as parents, right? I mean, you've got kids that don't really know much of anything. They don't really have any skills. So it's our job, our responsibility to train them, to coach them, to kind of bring them up, take them under your wing. So I kind of see it as that, like, kind of giving back and paying it forward a little bit.
I love that. And it's so true. Like, actually, graduating and getting into those roles and trying to figure out where you're going, and having a company help you with that and help you see those processes, I think is really important. And, you became high potential at NOV. You moved around the world. You went up, did certain roles that were, really high qualifying. And, through that, there was some times where maybe you were given a role that you didn't maybe feel qualified for, or maybe a position that you weren't very excited about. And I think through everybody's career, they run into that, and then they start questioning, well, is this role really right for me? And be able, in order to figure out kind of where you fit in that org and in those positions, you always kind of look to a mentor or a sponsor. And you did that during your career. And can you share with us the importance of having a good mentor and career advice on handling a situation where maybe you're getting a role that you're not very excited about, but you're kind of being told, hey, this is just a stepping stone? And kind of what's your advice when something like that happens? Because it definitely happened in your career, and you were able to excel from it.
Yeah, it truly is invaluable to have, that mentor that can help kind of shepherd you through the, not just the good times, but the tougher times as well. So yeah, I'm thinking back to my when I took on the VP of engineering role at NOV, I had spent a few years in Singapore running our sales and operations office there, 2007 through 2009. So, which was some of the best years of my life. I mean, personally and professionally. I mean, I was recently married, so we were traveling. We were getting to experience all sorts of new experiences in Asia, and business was good. I mean, we were building rigs all over the place. It was super exciting. So then this new role comes up. This is getting through the financial crisis that our VP of engineering took an early retirement. So this opportunity came, and as I'm thinking, it's like, this. I've kind of been going down this path of sales and operations. This is what I want to do. And now you're throwing this curveball at me, like engineering, I haven't done that. And yeah, I have an engineering degree, yes, but I, have the piece of paper that says I did that, but I haven't really done that for years, right? I mean, so yeah, it's definitely a bit of a curveball. So I'm thinking, is this the right thing? First of all, I don't really want to come home. It's a great time in Singapore, but so that's the power of the mentor. So my mentor at NOV, Kurt Shelton, who's still there, a great man, almost like a father figure to me. He sat me down and said, look, this is not about engineering per se. I'm not expecting you to be in SolidWorks all day. This is about developing your leadership skills. This is about building a team around you, to do the things that we need to do. And kind of being in that circle of trust, where we're making these big decisions, all the time. So it's like, okay, I mean, what am I gonna? I can't say no to that. This is the man that's sent me all over the place, and had all these these great opportunities for me before. So I trusted him, and so at the ripe old age of 29, moved back to Houston and stepped right into that role. And if you recall, that was about the time the shale boom was really kicking off. So, that was super exciting. So we were developing new products. We made a bunch of acquisitions. Our business was growing, so I was, adding to the team and doing all that. So, I mean, obviously, he was dead right. It was absolutely the right move to kind of get into that, to the next step, to the next phase. So yeah, it was a great opportunity. I know, by the way, it was about that time I went back to school and got an MBA at Rice, all while still working. So I would say that move worked out okay. It dragged me back kicking and screaming, but it worked out all right.
I love that, because I think we all look back on our careers in a certain moment where we were thinking like, this is completely wrong for us. I don't want to do this. And then looking back, a few years later, you're like, thank God I took that, because if I would have taken that opportunity, man, where would I be? So,
right.
You grow the most when you're challenged. So thanks for sharing that. So in 2014, you were in a general manager role right after that VP of engineering, I believe, and you had to go through reorg, new strategy, merger. I mean, lots was happening in the industry. What do you think is one of the most important qualities of a leader during these types of changes? How do you get the buy-in from the people that are being affected by top-level management changes? And I believe with that VP of engineering role, and like what you was we want to build you into being a leader, into running an organization. And what do you think are some of the qualities that you learned over those two periods of what is a true good leader?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. I mean, stepping into that first general management role, that's kind of the next evolution, if you will. I had a brief stint as a VP of sales, but that was right before this big management change came at NOV and a big reorg. So the business that I was in basically got dissolved, and it was being parsed out into other different businesses. So I took the piece that was looking after the service companies. Then I picked up a few manufacturing facilities, brought in a couple of product lines, integrated acquisition. So there was a lot going on in that first year. This was 2014, right? It's a good year up until about Thanksgiving. That's when oil prices started to come back down, and we had a rough couple of years after that. But before that, I mean, I think about these are some of the most fun I've had in my career, because I was also, it felt like we were building a little startup within a big company, because this was a new business. We were kind of bringing all these different pieces together, putting them together. And I hired didn't hire them all, but I brought in a new management team. I did make a couple new hires in the UK and in South America. So, I mean, there was a lot going on at the time. So, when you talk about good qualities, during those kind of turbulent times. I mean, I think it's pretty easy. It's honesty, it's transparency and communication with an additional side of communication, because you just cannot communicate enough in those times when there's just change everywhere. Everybody's wondering, like, what's going on? What does it mean for me? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to get a new job? I mean, everybody wants to know what's going on. So whether that's, doing these in-person town hall meetings when you're traveling to your facilities around the world, casual water cooler talk, just having an open door in your office and these people come in and ask you questions. I think you got to shoot people straight. You got to tell them what's going on. And if you don't have the answer, that's okay too. You can say, look, I don't know, but we're going to get those answers and, we'll get back to you. Because I think, deep down, you know that you're doing the right thing for your people and for the organization as a whole. So, as the old adage goes, if you take care of your people, the rest will kind of take care of itself. So, I mean, I think you kind of have to use that as your true north to just do what's best by your people, take care of your people, answer their questions, shoot them straight, give them the news when you get it, don't hold anything back. And then, just march forward.
I like your perspective on the transparency, because I think that's really key in all of these situations, especially during difficult times. But, as we're talking, you talk a lot about, you spent 13 years at NOV. You were passionate about NOV. They loved you. They moved you around the world. You have a great sponsor and mentor that actually still works at NOV, but you decided to leave. And it's interesting because you got a really great opportunity actually into a different part of the industry. What made you take that kind of risk? Because through our careers, there's a point where we start to think like, is there more, or am I in the right spot? And then this opportunity comes up and you jump. You were obviously comfortable at NOV, and they obviously, really liked you and you were moving up. So, what are some of the key things that happened to you during that transition where you're like, yeah, I need to take this? And like, what made you make that jump?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's one that I've thought about and I've pondered, quite a bit, over the years. I think so. If you think about it, we just came out of a really rough couple of years. 2015 and 16 were brutal. And there are layoffs. There's all kinds of bad stuff. Actually, what we thought was rough until we hit COVID, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, right?
It was the worst downturn until 2020 hit us in the face. But no, we'd come out of a rough couple of years. Things were starting to get better. Early 2017, we started to see some green shoots. Some frac activity was coming back. That was kind of a lot of what I was chasing. And I felt a little stale. I felt a little bit like I wasn't being challenged like I was before. And honestly, I started thinking about it. I'm like, look, I'm in my 30s. There's things are going well, but if I make a move, if I take a chance, I'm still young enough that I can recover. Like if I fail miserably, I can still come back from this. And we like you said, I was comfortable. I was definitely on the right track, but it's like, I got to prove to myself, I got to do something that I prove to myself that I can do something different. I can get out of my comfort zone and I can go take a stab, and prove to myself and others that I can do something different, not be that one trick pony. So yeah, that's exactly the way it kind of came. And, you get those calls from recruiters. I mean, typically I wasn't taking them, but this one's like right place, right time, I guess. So it was a bad day or something like that. And then, that kind of, it snowballed, and it's like, yeah, since it turns into, what would sound like it's a great opportunity to go lead this business. It was oil and gas and coal mining, but also looking to expand into other industries. So that was also attractive too, to kind of get a little bit of diversity, away from just pure oil and gas. Though I've come back full circle. I'm glutton for punishment. I'm back, but at the time, obviously going through a tough downturn, you kind of think some other things. But so yeah, so I did. So I jumped and got into this next role, and I think it was a great business. It was a lot of fun. It was very different. It's still manufacturing based, which is what I knew and what I loved. Except instead of making pressure control equipment or whatever it was, we're making wire and cable, big honking wire and cable power, whatever it was. So it was a great business. It was a lot of fun. I think, it was a great experience for me to get in there. And I think ultimately that was the point, is like, hey, I did this. I proved like this was that I could step out of my comfort zone and get into something new and different and ultimately succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we all go through probably several of those kind of crossroads where you have these great opportunities coming your way and you think, if I leave and I take this opportunity, I can get to where I want to go, 5 years sooner versus staying. But then sometimes you might take these risks, and then you're like, man, if I would have stayed, I'd be the president right now. Everybody says this constant.
Sure.
It's like you don't know what to do, and whatever way it goes, you always kind of look back of like, what would have happened if I got married with that girl in high school? Like you can't think like that. Like it's just,
yes. I know.
It's just like I think we all go through that, but it's just like think ahead, and at the end of the day, kind of no matter which paths you take, they always lead you to where you are today. And if you wouldn't have left, you wouldn't be president of the Americas for Dyna. So many things wouldn't have happened. So at some point, we all have to take a risk. And what I really liked about what you said is I was still young enough in my career in your 30s to fail miserably. And like, you could still go back to NOV. Like these companies are always going to be here. If you had a good network, they'll take you back. I've seen it so many times where people leave, they come back to the same company. So I think it's so great to take risks regardless of what happens. You're going to learn from them. And if you're not failing, you're not winning. So I really like that.
Yep, that's right.
So you stayed for 2 years at that cable manufacturing company. It was you faced a few hardships along the way. Business started going south, just different challenges that you kind of faced as you left your comfort zone. And then there was a position that came up, another great opportunity in private equity, and you decided to take it. Looking back at those 2 years, even though they didn't work out and you're not still there, can you tell us maybe like one of the biggest lessons that you learned during those 2 years that you could still use today, and looking back saying like, I'm glad I went through those 2 years?
Yeah. So I think more than anything else, it was to prove to myself that, that I can do this, that I can do this whole leadership thing. And that, no matter where it is, I can find my place and I can succeed. And I think that making that first move, I mean, you get these opportunities, great opportunities in NOV, fantastic, super grateful, always will be for that. Now, running Amber Cable, was also a great opportunity. And then, eventually stepping into the COO role for Gulfstream in this private equity realm. I belong. I'm here. I've made it. I can be successful, and I think to this day it makes me. I realize the lesson learned is like I'm comfortable in this leadership skin. Like no matter where it takes me or wherever I go, I can find my way, and I'm going to be successful. So, and that was something too that I mentioned in the pre-interview that talking to after I hired on. With Gulfstream, it was one of the board members said, we wouldn't have given you a second look if you had been the big company lifer. It's like you're there, you work for the same people, they know you, it's comfortable, it's easy, but like you took the chance, you stepped out, you did something else. So that proved to be, I guess it proved to be the right move, because here we are today. It ended up working out. But yes, I mean that was the biggest thing I learned, is that, this is just, you can take chances. They don't always work out, but you always going to learn something, and you can always improve. You can always be prepared for the next opportunity that comes your way.
With that, especially, going to private equity and you being in the industry for as long as you have, and then now as president of the Americas for DynaEnergetics, there's been a lot of times throughout your career where you have either been involved with, diversity, have that be through board members, through you managing your team, through, just being in the industry alone. What have you seen, especially now as the leader that you are today and running a team, what have you seen as kind of what's holding, not just women back from reaching these higher management roles, but what's overall coming from big company to private companies? Like, what do you see as kind of a common theme of why it's hard to even attract women to the industry and then have them stay and get that opportunity to move up? What's your advice, especially now running a company as president of the Americas, on changing that for DynaEnergetics?
Yeah, so I'll take the last question first. I'll come back to kind of what I think about, because I've wrestled with this and thought through it a lot here the last couple of weeks. So I'll say we at DynaEnergetics, I think we've got a lot of good things going on. I think what it takes, I think it starts with individuals, leaders making a commitment, an individual commitment to yourself. Say, look, we need different thought processes. We need people to challenge our status quo, because we all get stuck in the same routines, the same ruts. So whether that's women, whether it's different nationalities, different races, we need all of the above to continue to push on that status quo. So I think what we're doing here at Dyna is, we're doing exactly that. And I think we're putting our money where our mouth is. I'll say here in the last couple of months, we've promoted a couple of our high performing women employees into more senior positions. And we just hired a new quality manager directly into a management role, also a woman from the outside. So we're excited about these moves. I think we're moving in the right direction. We're also, I'm also happy to talk about, we started out what was a pilot program this year, where we brought in a variety of women from our Blum, Texas manufacturing facility, and what we call the Women in Leadership Forum. So it's a shop floor supervisors all the way up to the senior plant leadership. So we brought them in, and we invited Massiel Diez. She is the Executive Vice President and Chief Legal Officer for our parent company, DMC Global. She came in, she spoke to the team about what it takes to succeed in this this type of environment and all that. As a woman succeeding, having a family, doing all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
So well received that we're going to go bigger and better next year. We're going to bring in more people. We're going to do it off site. I think we're going to bring in some representatives from our other sister companies, Arcadia and Nobleclad. So super excited about that. And I'll say too, if you look across Dyna as a whole globally, we're comprised, it's about 38% women. If you drill that down to our Blum and Whitney, Texas manufacturing facilities, that mix actually increases to 45%. It's something that I was very surprised by when I was interviewing, and then when I stepped into the job. Something I'm very proud of too, because you think about it, this is manufacturing in the oil field, which are typically very, very much male dominated.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's a mix of who's applying for the work that we have, but I think it's also an intentional effort of ours to bring that diversity, not just to our machinists, to our assembly operators, but also all the way up to the senior plant leadership. So we're on the right track. We've got a long way to go, don't get me wrong. But I think to answer the first question, what is it that's holding women back? I think we have made a lot of strides, but I think to me, it's the old stereotype that women are not as committed to the company, to the mission, or just sticking around long term. And then, to take that a step further, the stereotype that, if or when women decide to have children, that, they're not going to stick around, or they're going to go home and raise the family. So why invest further in them, or why promote them up, into those ranks? So those were the societal norms, right? That's the way that we grew up for the past, for the last decades. And, obviously now we're pushing back on that big time. We're rejecting that. This is not who we are or what we want to be. And I think, like I said, we've got a long way to go, but, pushing back on it and bringing it to light, talking about exactly what y'all are doing here with your platform and your podcast, saying, hey, we're right here. We're mothers, but we're employees. We want the best for our families, but also for our careers. Like, you can do both. Mm-hmm. And it's perfectly normal and acceptable and awesome to do all of that. And I think, as rough as COVID was, but I think it actually did bring some more flexibility in talking about, managing and work from home and all of that. I think that actually was one of the bright spots, I think, of COVID, is it's like there's ways that we can manage and juggle and do all of the above. So I'm excited by what I'm seeing. I mean, I think, again, what y'all are doing here is fantastic. I'm seeing it in our industry, which again has typically been very male dominated. But we're seeing more women, more leaders, come through some of the women that y'all have interviewed, awesome interviews talking about their experiences. I mean, we're on the right track. We got a ways to go, but I'm happy to see the progress.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. You guys are doing an amazing job. And I think a lot of companies, to your point, are starting to do the same, because at the end of the day, we know a more diverse team is more successful, more diverse thoughts. And yeah, we're definitely in the right direction. We're excited, but to your point, there's still a lot of work to be done with the numbers across the industry. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for coming on our podcast. We loved your story, and thank you for the support that you guys have shown us.
Yeah, you bet.